And moving on, while we have seen the deal momentum slow down in India in the year gone by, largely on the back of the kind of slowdown that we've witnessed across the globe, here's one thing that stood out. India has managed to surpass China in terms of the number of unicorns as well as deal wins in the year 2022. My colleague Vinny joins in to break down those details for us. Vinny.
So absolutely, this is the second consecutive year that India has actually added more unicorns than China. And this time around in 2022, India has added 23 new unicorns, while China has added 11 startups only with a valuation of about $1 billion or more. So yes, again, India is topping the charts in terms of unicorn against China. Now overall, this is the second consecutive year. This year, when you look at it in terms of the numbers that are coming in, 48 mega deals that were there. That is a 0.5% drop from 2021 in India in comparison to that. So yes, 2021 versus when you compare our figures in the country itself, yes, we are seeing a bit of a drop there, a bit of a slowdown there. Also in terms of the share of the number of top 3 metro cities in funding grew by 18% in 2022 as well. This is the non-top 3 metro cities. So other than the top 3 metro cities, everyone else is also doing well. Other cities are also starting to contribute a bit more now. So that's surely a positive news there. Funding momentum, when you talk about it, how is that actually shaped up? Funding momentum in India is similar to that overall global levels. We are seeing a bit of slowdown in terms of the momentum of the funding that we are getting. But yes, when you look at it, 2021, $38.5 billion was raised. 2022, we are raising $25.7 billion. So 0.7 times that of the 2021 funding that we have seen in terms of the total deal value coming in over there. So deal volumes, on the other hand, actually has seen an increase of 1.1 times versus 2021. Investments grew by 1.4 times over the first half of 2021 and 2022. When you compare it, investments are growing much faster in the first half of the year. Second half of the year, we started seeing a slowdown in terms of the investments coming in, the deals coming in, the decline in funding coming in. That happened in the second half of 2022. Mainly the trends and companies which saw increase in fundings, SaaS as well as fintech retained their pace in terms of the funding that they were receiving. Consumer tech saw a bit of a decline. Defining year for EVs, because 2.4 times growth in terms of the funding, and green shoots were also visible in EV, AI as well as clean tech.
Well, the spate of layoffs has been very real, and the startup world has been reeling under pressure of that. For instance, you had Meta, which laid off 11,000 of their employees globally. You also had Twitter, which said that they fired more than 90% of their roughly 200 plus staff, and recently as well laying off about 10% of their overall workforce. But we understand that various homegrown companies now, for example, the microblogging platform Quess, e-commerce entity Pinnacle Solutions, augmented tech reality company Mirror, they're all snapping up a lot of these employees that have been laid off by the big tech companies. Is this some sort of a decisive trend? Will it provide a huge relief? What does it mean for the pay packages of a lot of these employees? Let's understand all of that. Joining in right now on the show is Vijay Sivaram. He's the CEO at Quess IT Staffing. Thank you so much for taking time out. And I just want to understand at the core of this, what do you think are the main reasons for a lot of these big tech companies firing employees left, right, and center? Would it be largely in order to reduce their ad spends? Would it be due to the overhiring that the companies have undertaken in the first place?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Well, a couple of pointers on why these layoffs have happened or why these right-sizing in organizations have happened. I think without doubt, what you said is absolutely right. I think last year was a significant surge in hiring. This resulted in two things. One, inflated employee costs. So hiring costs were higher. Employees asked for more salaries, that resulted in inflated salaries. And second, there was hiring that happened across the world. So when they couldn't get talent in a country, they spread out their talent, which resulted in also a huge amount of productivity-led issues as such. So a lot of people were hired last year. That's number one. Number two, in the view of the whole digital play that happened post-COVID, organizations significantly invested into new projects. So a lot of incubated projects happened over the last 1.5 years. Some of them couldn't see the light of the day. So some of the folks that's been laid off or been resized have been predominantly working on projects which never saw the light of day.
In specific, if we could just understand, Vijay, which are some of the roles that have been asked to be laid off? Is it very, product specific, global capability centers, very focused digital roles that have been asked to go, that had been asked to go?
If you look at bulk of the roles that were hired last year during the surge were roles such as full stack, DevOps, analytics, cloud, and areas such as that. It would be very tough to estimate as to what kind of roles were asked to go. I think it was predominantly basis on 2-3 aspects. One, the skills relevant to that employee, were they relevant to the organization? That's number one. Number two, was the employee in the services format or in a startup format, where they're getting billable in nature, where they're getting margin through the resource. And number three, where they're part of a program that is now being shelved or does not see light for the day. So it would be very tough to estimate as to what skills will end up, but I think it is more on the premise of why and how did that result in that person or that type of teams.
Okay. And just to understand, are a lot of these employees now in a bit of a tough spot because there are non-compete agreements, and do you think that now the industry practice has generally been that they have not been allowed to go to other competitors within the next 6 to 12 months and not being able to get a job despite possessing all of these skills and talents? Is that a bit of a hindrance for these companies?
Well, without doubt, I think from an employee standpoint, it's a little saddened to hear that that they've lost their job as such. But I don't think so. A lot of organizations have that unless they are extremely specific or have access to very specific data codes, which is unlikely because most organizations have very strong cybersecurity practices and data privacy processes. So it is unlikely that the employee or the employer is hindered to hire someone unless it's, let's say, a salesperson or someone who's worked on some patents which may be pertaining to the previous employer. But at a skill level, if someone's an SAP graduate or if someone's worked on SAP projects or someone's worked on an analytics project, it's unlikely that person will not be hired by a future employer.
Given that there is this huge talent pool that's available, which are some of the kind of companies that have started hiring, and are they all homegrown?
So this is very interesting. I think I'd like to break this part into 3 types of companies that are looking at hiring these people. So one, without doubt, I think GCCs or global capability centers or captives, however you want to call them, GICs, we are seeing an increased expansion mode in that space in India. So we continue to see new captives being set up in India. Almost every other day in the papers, you would see one company coming in. Number 2, you would see current captives expanding their presence here. And I think they are great consumers of this talent because let's remember that some of these companies that have laid off high caliber talent. These guys, these candidates have worked in very strong environments, product environments. So very useful for a lot of capability centers that are embarking on the digital journey. Second is the startup story is not over. The startup story in India and the mature startups that continue to raise capital, they would still need talent to build their products.
I believe that a lot of these employees were mid-level to senior professionals, an annual CTC of roughly 40 lakhs going up to about 1 crore. From the viewpoint of those who have been fired, is the outlook grim? Is it going to be massively reduced salaries for them? And as well as the fact that there won't really be any job stability in the new companies that they go to?
So my estimate, it's a great question. My estimate is that I don't think they will have to come down on salaries drastically. I think the new normal is here. I think they will operate at salaries similar. But will they enjoy the salary hikes they got last year when they jumped organizations? No. So if you look at last year, they had employees who were making up to 80%, 100% hikes when they jumped from organization A to B. That wouldn't happen anymore. So they will have to accept a more normalized salary hike first from employers, and but I don't think so. The base level at which their compensation will come down because, like I mentioned earlier, there is still demand. Now, the problem for those candidates who are not relevant, the skills are not updated. They haven't updated themselves. They will possibly go through a churn. This is like the bottom 5% of any bell curve. You don't stay relevant to the industry, you don't stay relevant to the skill, there is a likely chance that you might have to go at a lower compensation. But that's a very small percentage of people. I think the larger percentage should not see a stress point on this people.
Okay, and what's the situation really looking like? Because it seems like the news reports are not showing any signs of abatement in these firings globally back home. Are they very over-leveraged with talent, and are we still going to see this trend of layoffs playing out through 2023?
I think we are moving towards the end of it. While some form of layoffs and right sizing will continue to happen in any form of organization today, but you will not see the volumes that you saw in the last few quarters. I think they will tone down. But I also like to call out another opportunity in this whole space, especially from an Indian context. Not all the layoffs happen in India. A lot of the layoffs happened in developed countries. And my belief and my strong belief is that some of these demands that were operating in other countries will get replaced out of India, which means it may not happen immediately, but in the quarters preceding, you will see some of those roles being replaced out of India. And not just from a cost standpoint, but from a pure play that we have the talent out here.
Just from your analysis, your learnings, the kind of probably conversations and data that you've seen and are having, do you think that it is the best bet for an employee, say, laid off from a big tech company overseas to actually look at an opportunity from a homegrown company, given that they do have those cutting edge skills that are required by these tech companies back home, or just perhaps wait it out that they will see opportunity from some of the big wigs like they're used to?
I think, again, a brilliant question. I think, what will happen is employees have not been that brand agnostic that they're not brand agnostic. They will choose homegrown companies. They will choose capitals. They will choose going back into services organizations. I don't think so. Candidates will or employees would want to will pick up one over the other because the environments are very different. In homegrown companies, unless new startups, etc., the excitement level is very different. You're building something new. You're building something more exciting. The product level is in a different architecture. So there's a lot of learning in that conversation as well. And a lot of employees love that, right? But there will always be a set of companies that like employees that may want to have a more secure statement than trying out completely new things. So India's talent is so diverse that you will find takers for all this type of organizations as well. But without doubt, I think homegrown companies as well as captives will continue to be able to consume this talent very effectively as long as the employee stays relevant and employee keeps upgrading his skill and make sure that they well networked to reach out to these organizations.
It's been interesting. Thank you so much for giving us that perspective. So perhaps now it's going to be the next best option. The fact that there are some people hiring who need these kind of skills for a lot of these employees to explore homegrown companies that are on a hiring spree. Thank you so much, Vijay, for joining us.
इस सुपर फास्ट जमाने में कार इंश्योरेंस क्लेम का स्ट्रेस क्यों?